Hey there. Welcome to the channel. If you're here, it means you want to leave a lasting impression on your next date. And guess what? You're in the right place because today we're diving into how to be unforgettable on a date. Now, imagine this. You walk away from your date, and not only are they thinking about you, but they're really thinking about you. The kind of thoughts that make them want to text you the moment they get home. Sounds amazing, right? Well, that's exactly what we're going to cover in today's video. Let's face it, dates can be nerve-wracking. We've all been there. The pressure to impress, the fear of saying the wrong thing, or wondering if they're actually enjoying themselves. We've all asked ourselves, am I doing this right? But here's the thing. While it's normal to feel nervous, there are specific things you can do to not only calm those nerves but also to make yourself unforgettable. And it doesn't take some grand, dramatic gesture. You don't need to be someone you're not. In fact, it's better to be your true self and just know a few simple, yet powerful techniques to enhance your natural charm. Today, I'm going to walk you through 3 game-changing techniques that will help you leave a mark on your date, and make them want to see you again, and again. But before we get started, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on life-changing tips like these. Techniques for being unforgettable on a date. 1. Start on the ground. Keep it real from the get-go. Have you ever noticed that when we first meet someone on a date, we usually ask, "So, how's your day been?" But how do you answer that? Good? Fine? It's vague and, let's be honest, it doesn't really spark much excitement or conversation. You want to set the tone for an engaging, unforgettable date, and that begins with how you start the conversation. Instead of asking broad questions like, "How are you?" start with something more specific. What happened today that's worth talking about? Maybe you had a funny moment on your way to the date, or perhaps something unexpected happened that's worth sharing. These small, relatable moments are golden for sparking meaningful conversation. For instance, try talking about something you experienced earlier that day or a movie you saw recently. It could be something as simple as, "I just saw a dog in a superhero costume. Totally made my morning." This doesn't just create conversation, it opens the door for the other person to share their own stories, creating a natural flow of dialogue. Why does this work? Well, it keeps the conversation light, natural, and organic. It's much easier to bond over something small, relatable, and real than to try to dive into big, existential topics right away. So, the next time you're on a date, ask yourself, what's in the news of my life today? What happened this morning? What's on my mind right now? Start there, and the conversation will flow naturally. From there, you can gradually build up to deeper topics as the date progresses. 2. Connect, don't coach. Skip the advice giving. One of the biggest mistakes people make on dates is falling into the mentor trap. You know what I mean, right? When you share something a little vulnerable, maybe you're talking about a challenge you're facing, and instead of your date connecting with you, they start offering unsolicited advice. Now, giving advice isn't inherently bad. In fact, sometimes it's helpful. But on a date? It's a huge mood killer. When someone starts giving advice, it shifts the dynamic. Suddenly, you're no longer two people on equal footing, sharing and learning about each other. Instead, one person becomes the mentor, and the other the mentee. And that's not exactly the recipe for attraction. Let's look at an example. Imagine you're on a date, and you say, "I've been struggling with my writing lately, getting too in my head and not being able to start." If your date responds with, "Oh, you just have to write every day. You can't overthink it, just sit down and do it," that can feel frustrating. They're not really connecting with what you've said, they're just giving advice. Instead, what's more powerful is vulnerability and connection. If your date responds by saying, "I totally get that. I've had similar struggles with creativity. It's so hard to get started. but once you're in the flow, it's magic, then it opens up the door for deeper conversation. You're both sharing personal experiences and connecting on a human level. That's intimacy, and that's what makes a date unforgettable. So, when you're on a date and someone shares something vulnerable, instead of jumping in with advice, try connecting with their experience. Share your own similar feelings or struggles. Create that moment of humanity and connection. It's not about fixing the other person, it's about being there with them in the moment. 3. Listen and capture. The power of active listening now. This one is huge. If you want to be unforgettable on a date, there's one thing you absolutely need to master: listening. I'm talking about active listening, where you're fully present and engaged in the conversation. This is something that often gets overlooked in the hustle and bustle of trying to impress someone. We're so focused on saying the perfect thing or thinking about how we're coming across that we forget the most important part of communication: listening. Here's why listening is so powerful. When you really listen, it shows that you care. It shows that you're not just waiting for your turn to speak, but that you're genuinely interested in the other person. And when you listen carefully, you can capture the essence of what they're saying, which makes them feel truly seen and understood. Let's look at an example. If your date tells you about a recent trip they took, don't just nod and think about how you can share your own travel story. Instead, listen intently. Ask follow-up questions that show you're interested in their experience. Maybe you say, "That sounds incredible. What was the most memorable part of that trip for you?" But here's the key: capture the essence of what they said. Later in the conversation, you might recap it in your own words, showing that you understood not just the facts but also the feelings behind them. For example, you could say, "It sounds like that trip really opened your eyes to how big the world is and how much there is to explore." This makes the other person feel like you're not just hearing them, but really capturing their thoughts and emotions. Why does this make you unforgettable? Because people don't forget the person who truly listens to them and makes them feel understood. When someone feels deeply listened to, it creates a bond, a connection that's hard to shake. There you have it. 3 powerful techniques that will help you be unforgettable on your next date. Remember, it's not about trying to be someone you're not. It's about being yourself, connecting authentically, and making the other person feel truly seen and heard. If you follow these tips, you'll not only make a lasting impression but also create a genuine connection that could lead to something amazing. So, what are you waiting for? Go out there, be present, and start making those unforgettable connections today. Let me know in the comments how these tips work for you. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Like and subscribe to get more tips and advice you need.